This is every time Quagmire crossed the line on Family Guy. Anyone remember the time Quagmire tried to boink his best friend's wife? This episode has a pretty classic premise.
Mrs. Griffin, I'm afraid your husband has amnesia.
Basically, Peter hit his head one day and forgot everything about his life. The doctor has no idea when his memory might come back, so for now, Lois has to deal with Peter being more insufferable than ever. Now, Lois is basically a random woman as far as Peter's concerned, and a hot one at that. Peter can't believe it when he finds out he can have sex with her whenever he wants, but he doesn't seem to understand the concept of marriage either.
You ready to have sex?
You bet. Move over so Tiffany and I have room.
What?
Lois is obviously infuriated by this, and Peter makes it worse by questioning the whole concept of marriage. Lois decides to leave him behind and take the kids with her, but unfortunately, the only apartment they can find is in the worst part of town. Now, you might be wondering where Quagmire comes into all of this, and the answer is right now.
Giggity. Giggity.
He spots Lois at the grocery store and decides to make a move. He invites her over for dinner, and Lois accepts, not realizing that there's only one thing on Glenn's mind right now. The next night, Quagmire pretends to be drunk and asks Lois to help him up to his bedroom. Lois gives him a hand, and pretty soon the two are in bed together. Meanwhile, Brian discovers that Lois and Quagmire are about to get it on, and he rushes to Peter to knock some sense into him. It turns out that Peter recovered from his amnesia a while ago, and he was just trying to see how long his bachelor life could last. But when Brian tells him where Lois is, he realizes he's got to do something fast. Back at Quagmire's house, he and Lois are basically on the verge of doing the nasty, only for Lois to say something that really turns him off.
If Peter's never coming back to me, it's at least nice to know I'm in the arms of a trusted friend.
Little does she know, nothing puts Quagmire off like consent. So, go figure. He immediately starts having performance issues. That's exactly when Peter bursts in, and all Quagmire can care about is reviving his dead boner. But this wasn't as bad as when Quagmire got real creative while trying to get out of his wedding. Wait, you might be thinking, Quagmire was about to get married? Yeah, he was, in season 4, episode 21 to be exact. It all starts when Peter wins a personal maid for a week on Wheel of Fortune. The maid, whose name is Joan, by the way, shows up and ends up doing all sorts of weird chores for Peter. Now, Peter invites his friends over the next day just to show his new maid off, only for Quagmire to start fantasizing about the poor girl. But get this, he's not being a perv like he usually is. Nope, he actually starts imagining the two of them in some kind of Lord of the Rings type romance, followed by this bizarre encounter.
Hey there. It's nice to pleasure your acquaintance. Would you like to go out to dinner tomorrow night?
Much to everyone's surprise, Joan says yes, and they agree to meet up at 9 o'clock, and I know what you're thinking. Quagmire probably just wants to get laid, right? Well, no, actually, as hard as it is to believe, he's actually fallen in love with Joan. Next thing you know, Quagmire and Joan are celebrating their 3-year anniversary. Now, I have no idea if they've done the deed yet, but you'll never guess how serious Quagmire is about this girl. It's like he's a whole different person all of a sudden.
I've decided I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?
Yep, good old Quagmire just straight up proposed to Joan, and they can't be more than half a dozen dates in their relationship. Of course, he's not exactly a paragon of good judgment, and neither is Joan apparently, because she says yes without missing a beat. Mr. Giggity invites his friends over for dinner, and they have a hard time believing all of this is happening. Peter seems to think it's all just a gag, but when Quagmire opens the door, he realizes just how wrong he is. Instead of the creepy, sloppy, next-door neighbor he loves, Peter finds out that Quagmire has actually gotten his life together, or rather, he seems to be completing his transformation into some suburban freak of nature.
Ooh, hate is a word we don't use in this house. Joan and I always say, if you don't have anything nice to say about someone, don't say anything at all.
Yikes, and it gets even worse from there. For real, Quagmire does something so absolutely shocking that it might just make you pass out.
All right, Quagmire, time for your lap dance.
No, guys, I can't do that. It's degrading to women.
Say what now? Did Quagmire just say no to a lap dance? There's no way this can last, right? Yep, it takes Quagmire all of 5 minutes to start ogling Lois from across the room at his own wedding. Realizing that this is his chance to get his friend back to his pervy old ways, Peter takes full advantage of the situation, and before you know it, he's gotten through to Quagmire.
Giggity, giggity, God, I've made a terrible mistake.
Since this is Quagmire we're talking about, he immediately tries to get out of the marriage, but things don't go according to plan. Joan pulls out a knife and threatens to kill both herself and Quagmire, so he has to backpedal fast. Knowing he can't just leave his wife, Quagmire pretends to have a heart attack, and even his friends throw him a fake funeral, all because he married someone on a whim and was too much of a coward to get out of it. That's almost worse than the episode where Quagmire took his pervertedness to a whole new level when he found out he had a daughter. If there's one thing you can say about Quagmire, Quagmire. It's that he has, interesting preferences when it comes to the sack. Basically, as long as the girl is 18, Quagmire sees nothing wrong with getting down with her. Of course, his freewheeling lifestyle makes it pretty much guaranteed that he has a few kids running around out there, but Quagmire's not the type to care about that sort of stuff. One fine day, Quagmire and the gang find themselves at a high school prom for some reason, where Quagmire runs into a girl named Courtney. Now, Courtney's 18, which makes her more than half Quagmire's age, but that doesn't stop him from putting the moves on her. To be fair, Courtney seems to be into him too, and they look like they have some solid chemistry on the dance floor. We can all probably figure out how Quagmire's night is going to end. Or do we? Quagmire gets her started on all the paperwork that's required before sleeping with him. Guess that's just how things go when you're a degenerate like him. But even so, they start to get all hot and heavy because Courtney seems to be super into him for some godforsaken reason. That's when the strangest thing happens.
Oh, Courtney.
Oh, Glenn. Oh, giggity.
Now, hold up just a minute there. Did that girl just say giggity? Quagmire immediately realizes that something's off because there's only one reason why Courtney would parrot his trademark line.
You're my daughter.
Yep, you heard that right. Quagmire almost bumped uglies with his own kid. And I mean, considering how many illegitimate children this guy's got around town, not to mention the decades that have passed while he's pursued every woman in his path, it makes sense that one of his kids would be an adult by this point. But the fact that he almost slept with his daughter, now that's a level of grossness I'd never have expected, not even from Quagmire. So obviously, Quagmire's not gonna do the deed anymore, but he does have a few things he needs to address. Courtney does too, of course, mostly because she's hoping Quagmire will remember her mom and tell her all about her. You see, she never knew her mom, so this poor girl needs all the help she can get. Unfortunately, Quagmire probably can't remember the last person he slept with, let alone some hookup from over 18 years ago. The best old Glenn can do is just read random stuff from around his kitchen. Courtney doesn't seem to mind, and she even gets teary-eyed at Quagmire's half-baked attempts at reassuring her. Now the thing is, Courtney's living arrangement is currently, shall we say, not great, so Quagmire suddenly decides to do the responsible thing and let his daughter live with her. All of a sudden, Quagmire's a new man. He even calls Peter out on his misogynistic jokes, but we all know this isn't gonna last, right? Fast forward a few days and Quagmire somehow convinced Peter to bring Meg along for a father-daughter camping trip. They end up getting lost, and that's when Quagmire finally blows his lid. He goes off on a rant on how he never chose to be a dad, which sounds like such a wonderful thing for a daughter to hear.
Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't.
I'm not Dad. I'm Quagmire. Glenn Quagmire. Giggity fucking giggity.
Ouch. Now that's gotta hurt. Stay classy, Quag. And finally, we've got the time Quagmire violated human rights in his own backyard. Okay, we're gonna need some context here. Basically, Peter decides to buy himself a pickup truck. Don't ask why, you know the reason is going to be absolutely moronic. The point is, he has no idea how to drive a pickup truck, so his neighborhood's in for some sheer chaos. His first victim turns out to be Quagmire, who understandably is upset that Peter wrecked his ride. I mean, it's a pretty sweet looking ride, but wait till you look at what's inside.
Damn it. Hey, come back. Oi,
Just to be clear, it seemed like Quagmire was literally trafficking women over here, and considering he's a pilot, it seems like something that would be almost too easy for him to pull off. But hey, a few women trapped in the trunk of his car isn't a big deal, right? Right, makes perfect sense. Where did these women come from? What was Quagmire planning to do with them? How can he sleep at night knowing he's such an absolute scumbag? These are questions we may never find the answer to, but that's just how things work with the pervious man of all time.